Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 260 of Manage the Wild. I'm your host, Nick Madsen. In 2020, I found myself at a quarantine facility, and there was a group of bighorn sheep that had been brought in due to a recent infection of what they call MOV, which is mycoplasma ovipneumoniae. And I was asked to take care of the quarantine facility at the time, as the researchers wanted to study how the infection progressed as it went through a population of bighorn sheep. They were curious if some of the animals would overcome the sickness and if they would be fine, or and if it progressed too far, then ultimately they would euthanize the population. All the rams at the time, I think there had been 5 or 6, they were all euthanized because they were all carriers. Though interesting things about the ewes, though, is they were pregnant, and they didn't really know how the MOV was going to affect them while they were pregnant. And this is where ewe number 28 comes into play. I really became attached to ewe number 28 as I would stand on the walkway above the quarantine facility, monitoring these animals. I would take video if there was new signs of progression of the disease or whatnot. And ewe number 28 was one of the animals that had showed early signs of being sick. There was some coughing that was taking place. And as the coughing started in one animal, it would spread to the group. And over time, they all started coughing. MOV presents itself in different ways, but some of the ways was through coughing. There was also some nasal seepage. There was a lot of nasal congestion, and then the animals ultimately would get to a point where it sounded like me going uphill. They would be wheezing like they were having a difficult time breathing. And number 28 is the one that really stuck with me. I remember right before she passed away, she was laying next to this barrel. She didn't really move much after she got to the point she was too sick. She couldn't eat. It was a difficult time for her to eat as well as drinking water. But she was covered in snow one day, just a day or two before this picture was taken. But she was completely covered in snow, and I was able to pick her up, and I got her out of the snow, and I put her into an area that was covered. And I just, ever since that moment of being able to sit next to her as I'd moved her from one area to another, trying to get her out of the weather, I guess I've been really attached to number 28. And just when I think back upon her situation, is just so distressing. It's just one of these memories that'll stick with me in wildlife. I mean, there's been a lot of great things, but these are some of the sad things. MOV is spread from different animals, domestic sheep and domestic goats. And in this case, it was the goats that infected this population, and they couldn't release them out into the wild because they ultimately would have infected another population with it. And so they had to put them into a quarantine facility. We watched not only number 28, ewe number 28, but we watched all the other ewes as they developed the disease and spread. And ultimately, it got to the point where we realized none of them were going to survive. And ultimately, the call was made to euthanize all the animals. They had brought together a bunch of different universities to grab the samples they needed. Some were blood samples. They were looking at lung samples, just a full-on necropsy of all the animals that ended up being euthanized. And in this situation, there's not a happy ending. And the challenge you have with bighorn sheep and disease is there's not a whole lot of great things that are coming down the pipeline, because population has been on decline since the 1800s, since Europeans have spread across. The population dropped from an estimate of roughly 2 million animals down to 40,000, depending on different numbers. The first signs of real disease were identified in the 1920s. The one thing that this situation has done for me is given me a new appreciation for just wildlife in general, being able to watch these animals and go through the situation that they did. But also, it gave me a new appreciation for disease within a population. You look at brucellosis, chronic wasting disease, uh, all of these all of these present huge challenges for wildlife managers, and it's something that's going to be difficult to work with as populations are being infected from one disease to another. There's not a whole lot you can do. In some bighorn sheep populations, they have they are called super spreaders, where they don't die from the disease, but they continue to shed those cells and continue to infect populations. So as soon as a population is healthy enough, they start shedding again and they will reinfect a population, and it kills off the very young ones. So they're some of the most susceptible, and then the old ones. And then in this case, we realized, or maybe the researchers already knew, but I didn't. But it started to cause these ewes to abort their fetuses, which was difficult to watch and observe and to take measurements on. That's never a fun thing to be able to go through. The important takeaway for me is that in this situation, animals became more than just animals. I could identify exactly what they were going through. This was the exact same time COVID was really hitting, and we were all being affected by COVID. And to watch different people have those respiratory lung issues and the different challenges they face, and to be able to exactly see this playing out into this population brought home a little more, and it created a situation where I could just identify more with bighorn sheep and the plight that they were going through. So these are just one of the memories that I have in wildlife, not necessarily a happy one, but one that I'll always remember. Number 28. Hope you guys learned something today. Have a great day. Stay wild.